Tom Bradley stretched his aching back as another boring day at his small repair station came to an end. The orbital dock floated quietly in the darkness between star systems, far from the busy trade routes where most mechanics made good money. Tom preferred it this way. Less customers meant less trouble, and after 20 years fixing ships, he had seen enough trouble to last 3 lifetimes. The warning alarm buzzed softly, telling him a ship wanted to dock. Tom looked at his screen and frowned. The vessel limping toward his station was barely holding together. Smoke poured from its engines, and the hull showed burn marks from what looked like a nasty crash. Whoever was flying that thing was either very brave or very stupid. "This is Bradley Station," Tom spoke into his radio. "You are cleared to dock at Bay 2, but take it slow. Your ship looks ready to fall apart." "Thank you," came the reply. The voice was strange, with clicking sounds mixed in with the words. "I will be very careful." Tom grabbed his tool belt and walked to the docking bay. He had dealt with aliens before, though most avoided human space. They usually thought humans were too primitive to fix their advanced technology. Tom did not mind. Their loss was his gain when desperate travelers had nowhere else to go. The docking bay filled with steam as the damaged ship settled onto the platform. Tom waited for the pilot to come out, expecting to see one of the usual species, maybe a tall Zentari trader or a small pixie messenger. Instead, the airlock opened to reveal something he had never seen before. The being that emerged moved in a strange floating chair. He had smooth blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the station lights, and 4 arms instead of 2. His large amber eyes looked tired and sad. Most surprising of all, his legs did not move at all. They hung limp in the chair, clearly paralyzed. "I am called Vel," the alien said, his voice soft and polite. "I am of the Velani people. I have heard that humans are, how do you say, resourceful?" Tom nodded slowly. "Depends what you need. I can fix most things, but I am not a doctor." Vel's eyes looked even sadder. "I do not need medical help. My injury cannot be healed. I need something else. Something that may be impossible." "Well, let me take a look at your ship first," Tom said. "Then we can talk about impossible things." They moved to where Vel's personal craft sat in the corner of the bay. It was a beautiful little ship, sleek and fast-looking, with the kind of advanced design that made Tom whistle in appreciation. But as soon as he saw the pilot controls, he understood the problem. The ship was designed for a being with working legs. The main flight controls were foot pedals, with secondary systems that required full body movement. For someone in Vel's condition, flying this ship would be completely impossible. "I was a scout pilot," Vel explained quietly. "I explored new systems for my people. It was my life, my purpose. Then came the accident." He gestured to his useless legs. "The doctors saved my life, but they could not save my career. No ship in Velani space can be flown by someone like me." Tom walked around the ship, studying every detail. His mind was already working, seeing possibilities where others saw problems. "How long since the accident?" 6 months. "I have traveled from system to system, hoping to find someone who could help. Most laugh at me. Others say it cannot be done." Vel looked directly at Tom. "You are my last hope." Tom scratched his beard, thinking hard. The Velani ship was incredibly advanced, with systems he barely understood. But the basic principles were the same as any flying machine: thrust, steering, life support. The problem was not the ship itself, but how to control it. "I might have an idea," Tom said slowly. "But it would take time. And it would not be cheap." Vel's face lit up with hope. "I have credits. Rare metals. Whatever you need." "Hold on there," Tom raised his hand. "I did not say I would do it for money. I said it would not be cheap. Big difference." "I do not understand." Tom smiled. "It means this project will cost me a lot of time and effort. But that does not mean you have to pay for it." He studied Vel's confused expression. "Let me ask you something. When you were a scout pilot, did you ever help someone just because they needed help?" Vel nodded. "Many times. It is the way of exploration. We help those we find in need." "Then you understand," Tom said. "Someone needs help, so I help them. Simple as that." "But why would you help me? We are not even the same species." Tom shrugged. "So what? You seem like a decent person who got dealt a bad hand. Besides, I like a good challenge." He looked at the ship again, his mind racing with possibilities. "Give me a few days to think about this. I have some ideas, but I need to see if they will work." Vel's amber eyes began to shimmer with moisture. "You would really try?" even though others say it is impossible. Kid, Tom said, clapping one of Vel's 4 shoulders, I have been told lots of things were impossible in my time. Usually by people who never tried hard enough. He headed toward his workshop. You can stay in the station guest quarters. Tomorrow we start figuring out how to get you flying again. As Tom walked away, he was already sketching designs in his mind. Somewhere in his cluttered workshop, he had everything he needed to give this alien his wings back. Tom spent the first morning crawling through Vel's ship with a scanner, mapping every wire and circuit. The Vellani technology was impressive, but like all machines, it followed basic rules. Power flowed from here to there, signals traveled along predictable paths, and everything had a purpose. Tell me about how you used to fly, Tom called out from under the control panel. Vel watched from his floating chair. It was like dancing. My feet controlled thrust and direction, while my hands managed weapons and communications. My whole body worked together. Show me, Tom said, sliding out from under the console. Pretend you are flying right now. Vel closed his eyes and moved his 4 arms in smooth patterns. His upper body swayed and turned as if responding to invisible forces. Even though his legs stayed still, Tom could see the grace and skill that had made Vel a good pilot. Interesting, Tom muttered, making notes on his tablet. Your arms and shoulders do most of the complex work. The leg controls were just for basic thrust and steering. Yes, but without them, I cannot fly at all. Tom grinned. Says who? For the next 3 days, Tom barely slept. His workshop became a maze of wires, metal plates, and half-built devices. He pulled apart old flight controls from crashed ships, studying how different species solved the same problems. Humans used joysticks and buttons. The bird-like avis used wing motion sensors. The rock people called granite used pressure plates. But Tom needed something completely new. The breakthrough came when he found an old neural interface headset in his spare parts bin. It had come from a human medical ship, designed to help paralyzed patients control wheelchairs with their thoughts. Tom stared at it for a long time, then began to smile. Vel, he called out. Come here and let me measure your head. The next week was a blur of careful engineering. Tom built a custom neural cap that fit perfectly over Vel's blue-scaled head. Tiny sensors would read the electrical patterns in Vel's brain, translating his thoughts into ship commands. But thoughts alone were not enough, the system needed physical input too. Tom redesigned the pilot seat completely. Where foot pedals once controlled thrust, he installed motion sensors that responded to shoulder movements. A gentle lean forward meant accelerate. Leaning back meant slow down. Tilting left or right would turn the ship. The 4-armed control system was even more complex. Tom built custom interfaces for each of Vel's hands. His primary arms would handle steering and weapons, just like before. His secondary arms would manage communications, shields, and life support. But now everything was positioned within easy reach of the modified pilot seat. This looks very complicated, Vel said, watching Tom install the neural interface. The complicated part is hidden, Tom replied, connecting the last few wires. For you, it should feel natural. The computer does all the hard work of translating your movements and thoughts into ship commands. Tom stepped back and looked at his creation. The pilot area no longer looked like a standard Vellani cockpit. Screens and controls surrounded the new seat in a careful arrangement that matched Vel's arm reach perfectly. The neural cap sat ready on a small stand, its thin wires leading to a processing unit Tom had built from scratch. Want to try it? Tom asked. Vel transferred from his floating chair into the pilot seat with practiced ease. Tom helped him put on the neural cap, then activated the systems. The ship hummed to life, but stayed safely locked to the docking platform. Think about lifting off, Tom instructed. But gently. Vel closed his eyes and concentrated. For a moment nothing happened. Then the ship began to rise slowly from the platform, responding to Vel's thoughts as smoothly as if he had pressed a control button. It works, Vel whispered, his voice full of wonder. Now try moving forward. Use your shoulders like I showed you. Vel leaned forward slightly. The ship began to glide ahead, still rising gently. Tom watched the control readings, everything was working perfectly. The neural interface was reading Vel's intentions, while the motion sensors tracked his body movements, combining both inputs to control the ship exactly as Vel wanted. Try a turn, Tom suggested. Vel tilted his body to the right, and the ship responded immediately, banking into a graceful curve. His 4 hands began to work the various controls, managing shields and communications with the skill of an experienced pilot. This is impossible, Vel said, but he was laughing now. I am flying again. They spent the next hour in the docking bay, with Vel practicing basic maneuvers. The ship danced through the air like a bird, responding to every thought and movement. Tom watched with satisfaction as Vel's confidence grew with each passing minute. When they finally landed, Vel sat quietly for a long time, his amber eyes bright with unshed tears. "How much do I owe you for this miracle?" he asked finally. Tom shook his head. "I told you before, I do not want your money. But you must want something. This work, this gift you have given me, surely it deserves payment." Tom considered this seriously. "There is one thing you could do for me." "Anything." "When you meet someone who needs help, you help them. When you see someone who has given up hope, you show them that impossible things can become possible. When you find someone who is different or broken or lost, you remember how it felt to fly again." Tom smiled. "That is all the payment I need." Vel reached out with all four arms and grasped Tom's hands. "I promise you this, Tom Bradley. I will carry your kindness to every corner of the galaxy." Vel's journey home to the Villani homeworld took 6 days through hyperspace. For the first time in months, he traveled as a pilot instead of a passenger. His new ship responded to every thought and movement like an extension of his own body. The neural interface had become so natural that he sometimes forgot he was paralyzed at all. When Vel landed at the main spaceport on Villani Prime, other pilots gathered around his ship with curiosity. They had known him before the accident, when he was one of their best scouts. Now they whispered among themselves, wondering how he had managed to fly such a complex vessel. "Vel, my old friend," called out Captain Zora, his former squadron leader. "We heard about your accident. How are you here?" Vel transferred to his floating chair and smiled. "I had help from someone special. A human mechanic named Tom Bradley." The crowd murmured with surprise. Humans were known throughout the galaxy, but most aliens considered them primitive compared to advanced species like the Villani. Their technology was basic, their ships slow, and their understanding of complex engineering was limited. The idea that a human had solved a problem that Villani engineers could not was difficult to believe. "Show us," Zora requested. Vel returned to his ship and demonstrated the new control system. The gathered pilots watched in amazement as he lifted off using only his upper body and thoughts. The ship moved with perfect precision, performing complex maneuvers that required great skill. When he landed, the crowd was completely silent. "A human built this?" asked an old engineer named Keth. "Not just built it," Vel replied. "He gave it to me for free. He asked for nothing in return except that I help others when I can." The story spread quickly through the spaceport, then across the planet's communication networks. Within days, every Villani had heard about the human mechanic who had restored flight to one of their disabled veterans. But the technology was only part of the story that captured their attention. The fact that Tom had asked for no payment puzzled many Villani, who lived in a society where everything had a price. Vel made recordings of his ship's capabilities and uploaded them to the Galactic Information Network. The footage showed not just the technical achievement, but also Vel's joy as he flew again. Other disabled beings across the galaxy watched these recordings with growing hope. On the crystalline world of Nexus 7, a scholarly race called the Nexans studied the engineering principles behind Tom's design. They were impressed by the elegant simplicity of combining neural interfaces with motion sensors. Their own attempts to help paralyzed individuals had been far more complicated and less effective. "This human has achieved something remarkable," noted Professor Quinn during a university lecture. "Not through advanced materials or complex algorithms, but through creative thinking and practical application." The warrior race known as the Karate heard the story differently. To them, Vel's return to flight represented honor restored. Their own culture had no place for disabled warriors. They were usually forgotten or assigned to meaningless desk jobs. The idea that someone would spend weeks helping a stranger regain their purpose was both foreign and fascinating to karate military leaders. Even the mysterious ethereals, who rarely communicated with other species, took notice. These energy beings had no physical bodies to repair, but they understood the importance of purpose and identity. Through their strange communication methods, word of Tom's gift spread to the furthest edges of known space. Back on his repair station, Tom continued his normal work, completely unaware of the attention he had attracted. He fixed a cargo hauler's broken engines, patched holes in a transport ship's hull, and installed new life support systems in an old mining vessel. It was the same routine he had followed for years. But his isolation was about to end. The first sign came when his communication system began receiving messages from across the galaxy. Most were requests for help from disabled individuals who had seen Vel's recordings. A former Nexon pilot who had lost his arms in a research accident wanted to know if Tom could modify his ship. A karate warrior whose legs were crushed in battle asked if similar technology could help him return to duty. Tom read through dozens of messages, each one telling a story of loss and hope. Many offered enormous payments, rare metals, advanced technology, or political favors. But what struck Tom most was the desperate need in every message. These were people who had given up on ever returning to their old lives. "I cannot help them all," Tom muttered to himself, looking at the growing list of requests. His small station had room for only one ship at a time, and each modification would take weeks of work. Then came a message that changed everything. Admiral Sarah Chen, the highest-ranking human in the Villani Defense Force, sent a private communication from the VSS Redemption, a massive Villani warship. She had heard Vel's story from her Villani colleagues and wanted to discuss something important with Tom. "Mr. Bradley," her message began, "my name is Admiral Chen. I serve with the Villani military, and I have a proposition that might interest you. We have many disabled veterans who dream of flying again, and unlimited resources to support your work. Would you be willing to discuss expanding your operation?" Tom stared at the message for a long time. He had always preferred working alone, solving one problem at a time. But the faces in all those requests haunted him. How could he help just one person when so many needed the same gift he had given to Vel? He started typing his reply, knowing that his quiet life was about to become much more complicated. Tom was replacing a faulty power coupling on a cargo ship when every alarm on his station began screaming at once. He dropped his tools and ran to the control room, wondering what kind of emergency could trigger every warning system he had. The main display screen showed something that made his heart skip a beat. A massive shadow was blocking out the stars, a ship so large that Tom's entire station could have fit inside one of its cargo bays. The vessel was sleek and powerful, with the distinctive blue and silver markings of the Villani military. This was not just any warship, but a dreadnought-class cruiser capable of destroying entire fleets. "Bradley Station, this is the VSS Redemption requesting permission to dock," came a calm voice over the radio. "We have Admiral Chen aboard with important business." Tom's hands shook as he reached for the communication controls. In 20 years of running his repair station, the largest ship he had ever serviced was a medium cargo hauler. Now a warship that could level planets was asking to use his tiny docking bay. "Redemption, this is Tom Bradley," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "My docking bay is way too small for your ship. I only have space for shuttles and small transports." "Understood, Mr. Bradley. We will send our passengers over in transport shuttles. Please prepare docking bay 1 for multiple arrivals." Tom rushed around his station, clearing space and checking life support systems. Whatever this was about, he wanted to make sure everything worked properly. Admiral Chen was not just any officer, she was the most famous human in the Villani military, known for her brilliant strategies and fair treatment of alien crews. The first shuttle arrived 30 minutes later. Tom watched through the observation window as the sleek Villani craft settled onto his docking platform. The airlock opened, and Admiral Chen stepped out. She was a tall woman with graying hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Her uniform bore medals from a dozen different campaigns. "Mr. Bradley," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you for agreeing to see us." "Admiral Chen," Tom replied, shaking her hand nervously. "I have to admit, I was not expecting a visit from the Villani military." "What we are about to show you might be surprising," the Admiral said with a slight smile. "Are you ready for more arrivals?" Before Tom could answer, his docking alert chimed again. Another shuttle was approaching, then another. Tom watched in amazement as 5 more transport craft landed in his expanded docking area. This was more traffic than his station usually saw in an entire month. The first shuttle opened, and Tom gasped. A Villani in a floating chair emerged, followed by another, then another. These were clearly military personnel. Their uniforms bore the insignia of pilots, engineers, and combat specialists. But every single one of them was disabled in some way. Some used floating chairs like Vel, others had missing arms, and a few showed the scarred faces of severe injuries. "Mr. Bradley," Admiral Chen said quietly, "I would like you to meet 63 of the bravest veterans in the Villani Defense Force. Each one of them gave their health in service to our worlds. And each one of them has been told they will never serve again." More veterans emerged from the other shuttles. Tom saw former pilots who could no longer reach flight controls, gunners who had lost their vision, and engineers whose hands shook too badly to handle delicate work. Despite their injuries, they all stood or floated with military pride, watching Tom with expressions of hope and desperation. "They all heard about what you did for Val," Admiral Chen continued. Word of your gift has spread throughout our entire military. These veterans volunteered to come here, hoping you might be able to help them return to service. Tom looked at the crowd of disabled soldiers and felt overwhelmed. Helping one person had been challenging enough, but 63? Each one would need custom modifications based on their specific injuries and the type of work they wanted to do. Admiral, I appreciate the trust you are showing me, Tom said slowly. But I am just one mechanic with a small workshop. This would take years, maybe decades. Which is why I am here with an offer, Admiral Chen replied. She gestured toward the massive warship visible through the station windows. The Villani High Command has authorized unlimited funding for this project. We will provide materials, equipment, additional workshops, and as many assistant engineers as you need. Tom stared at her. Unlimited funding. The Villani Council of Elders was deeply moved by your kindness to Vel. They have never encountered a species that gives such gifts freely. They want to honor that generosity. Admiral Chen paused, watching Tom's reaction. They are also offering you the Order of the Silver Wing, the highest decoration we can award to a non-Villani. I do not want medals, Tom said quickly. And I do not need honors. We know, Admiral Chen smiled. Which is exactly why you deserve them. But there is something else. These veterans are not just asking for help, they are offering to help you help others. She turned toward the crowd of disabled soldiers. Each of these people has skills and experience that could be valuable in your work. Former engineers who understand ship systems, pilots who know what controls work best, medics who understand different species' needs. They want to be part of the solution, not just recipients of your charity. Tom looked at the faces around him, proud warriors who refused to give up, skilled professionals who wanted to use their knowledge to help others, people who understood what it meant to lose everything and fight to get it back. What exactly are you proposing? Tom asked. Admiral Chen's smile grew wider. We want to turn your small repair station into the galaxy's first rehabilitation engineering center. A place where disabled beings from any species can come for help, staffed by people who understand their struggles firsthand. 6 months later, Tom's small repair station had grown into something he barely recognized. What once was a lonely outpost with 2 docking bays now sprawled across 3 connected platforms, humming with activity from dawn until deep into the night. The sign outside still read Bradley Station, but everyone in the galaxy knew it by its new name, the Galactic Mobility Center. Tom stood in the main workshop, watching a team of engineers work on their latest project. A young ethereal named Brightsong floated nearby, her energy form flickering with excitement as they tested a new interface that would let her control solid matter vehicles. The engineers working on her case included 2 former Villani pilots, a human medic, and a karate warrior who had lost his legs in battle. Try the thought bridge now, suggested Marcus, the human medic who had joined Tom's team 2 months ago. Remember, focus on the sensation of movement, not the mechanics. Brightsong's energy form pulsed, and the test vehicle began to move smoothly across the workshop floor. She was the first of her species to attempt controlling physical machinery, but Tom was confident they would solve the remaining problems within a few days. Mr. Bradley, called Sarah, his new administrative assistant. She was a former Nexan scholar who had lost her ability to speak in an accident but communicated through a device Tom had modified for her. There is someone here to see you. A reporter from the Galactic News Network. Tom sighed. Reporters had been bothering him constantly since the story of his work had spread. Most wanted to know about the technology, but some asked more annoying questions about his motivations and feelings. He preferred to let his work speak for itself. Send him to Workshop 3, Tom replied. But tell him I only have 10 minutes. The reporter was a Nexan named Quinn who carried recording equipment and wore the serious expression that all journalists seem to practice. He looked around the busy workshop with obvious amazement, watching teams of mixed species working together on dozens of different projects. Mr. Bradley, my name is Quinn from GNN, the reporter began. I wanted to ask you about what people are calling the Bradley Revolution. In just 6 months, you have changed how the entire galaxy thinks about disability and rehabilitation. How does it feel to have started such an important movement? Tom continued welding a joint on a new flight harness designed for a bird-like Avis pilot. I did not start any revolution. I just helped some people who needed help. But surely you must feel proud of what you have accomplished, Quinn pressed. Your techniques are being copied on hundreds of worlds. Medical schools are teaching the Bradley method. Even species that rarely interact with others are sending representatives to study your work. Good, Tom said, not looking up from his welding. The more people who can help, the better. Quinn looked frustrated by Tom's simple answers. But what drove you to begin this work? What makes humans so different from other species when it comes to helping those in need? Tom finally stopped welding and looked at the reporter. Nothing makes us different. Every species helps their own people. We just help everyone, that is all. But why? What do you gain from helping beings you have never met before? Tom considered the question while he cleaned his welding torch. Through the workshop windows, he could see the launch pad where another ship was preparing for departure. This one carried a karate veteran who had thought he would never pilot again. Yesterday, a group of Nexan students had left after receiving new mobility devices. Tomorrow, 5 ethereals would arrive for their first consultation. Let me ask you something, Tom said to the reporter. If you saw someone fall down in front of you, would you help them get up? Of course, Quinn replied. Why? Because they need help. Exactly, Tom nodded. It does not matter if they are Nexan or Villani or human or whatever. They fell down, so you help them up. That is what decent people do. But this is much more complex than helping someone who fell down. Tom shrugged. No, it is not. These people fell down in a different way. Their bodies stopped working like they used to. So we help them get back up. The engineering might be complicated, but the reason is simple. Quinn scribbled notes frantically. And you believe any species would do the same thing? Most would, for their own people, Tom replied. Humans just do not see much difference between our own people and everyone else. Someone needs help, so we help them. That is the human way. A chime sounded, indicating another ship was requesting permission to land. Tom looked at his schedule display, 3 more arrivals today, including a delegation from a species he had never heard of before. Each group brought new challenges and new opportunities to learn. I have to get back to work, Tom told the reporter. There are people waiting for help. One last question, Quinn said quickly. Where do you see this project in 10 years? What is your ultimate goal? Tom picked up his tools and headed toward the next workstation, where a team was preparing to modify a ship for a disabled granite pilot, a member of a rock-like species that had never interacted with humans before. My goal is the same as it always was, Tom called back over his shoulder. Fix what is broken. Help who needs help. There is always someone else who needs help, so the work never ends. As Quinn left the station, he passed the launch pad just as the karate veteran's ship lifted off. The pilot's voice came over the radio, speaking in his own language but with joy that needed no translation. Tom smiled and returned to his workbench. Somewhere in the galaxy, someone needed help. And Tom Bradley would be ready.